This is a chapter on motivation, and motivation is extremely important within the context of management because we want to be able to ensure that all of the workers who work for the organization have the drive and the tenacity to work towards a common goal. Okay, so we have to do a couple things in this in terms of broad things. We have to understand what motivation is, and then we got to understand the context behind it, or some of the theories behind motivation and how they apply to management. So what we looked at in this a whole bunch of those types of theories. So the first thing we want to take a look at is, what is the definition of motivation? Well, motivation is a couple of things. It's a persistent effort, and that means that you're at it for more than just a little while. It's something that you really drive towards doing. And the fact is, it is directed towards a specific goal. So it's a very focused effort on some sort of a goal. And there are internal factors that drive us to be motivated and external factors that drive us to be motivated. Internal factors could be, we feel good because of it, or it makes us feel useful. External factors could be things like rewards, pay, these sorts of things. So organizations need to be aware that people need those internal and external sources of reward in order to be motivated. So motivation results from an interaction of both conscious and unconscious factors, such as intensity of desire or need, and incentive and reward, so internal, external, and expectations of the individual and his or her peers. So if we think about some of the basic characteristics of motivation, well, there are really four. There's effort, which is the amount of strength that a person puts into the work-related behavior. There's persistence, the fact that that strength is applied over time, is applying effort over time to certain tasks. Direction, that is that they are focused in a particular direction towards a certain goal, and the goals themselves, which refers to the extent towards which the employee directs their effort. Obviously, having done some background on motivation now, we ask, well, what does this have to do with work? Well, motivation is one of the most traditional topics in organizational behavior. It's become more important in organizations as a result to need for increased productivity and global competitiveness. So, wow, it was always important, but in our world today, it's that much more important because employers have to understand how can we make or get or incentivize workers to contribute in such a positive way that we achieve those goals in a very efficient and effective way. So now the lessons then to management have to be applied. So we understand that motivation is important. The next thing that we looked at was the fact that, let's look at how people motivate. And, and really what we do is we go back to the turn of the century, the 19th century, and say, how was motivation done then? Well, motivation used to be done by whipping people. So basically you push people. And people were just like machines. The more gas you give them, the faster they would go. So you push them harder, the faster they would work. That was the general theory that was accepted many, many years ago. And that became known as Theory X. And Theory X really didn't have a very good view of people. It really said people are lazy and they need to be pushed. And if we can push them, we can get them to do things. So we threaten them, push them, whatever you want to call it. So Theory X is a very old school type of approach. Over the last 50 years, we've really come to reevaluate whether Theory X style management is a good type of management, because it doesn't really value people for being people. So a more modern approach is what's called Theory Y management. Theory Y management takes a very opposite view. It says people are naturally inquisitive, they want to work, they'll be motivated. If you can make them interested, they'll be motivated, and they will do a whip snapper job for you. All you need to do is treat them right. So Theory Y really focuses on treating people right. So it encourages more collaborative, trust-based relationships, and based on that, you will have a more motivated worker. So managers tend to fall on the one extreme or the other, and somewhere between, I'm going to say, between the two extremes of Theory X and Theory Y. And we had a little video there of theory why, and you can take a look at that. Another important concept that we looked at in motivation for managers to be aware of in terms of the managing is that there are really two broad categories of rewards that motivate people. The first one is by far the most important. That is intrinsic rewards. And managers don't have a lot of control over intrinsic rewards because intrinsic rewards are rewards that come to you from you for the work you do. It is the feeling of achievement, the feeling of goodness, the feeling of pleasure, the feeling of all these positive feelings, whatever you want to define them as, that you get from doing a good job at work. And intrinsic motivation is really a direct relationship between the worker and the task, and it's all internally driven. So you feel good about your work, you're going to work harder. Okay? So if we can make people feel good about the work, the idea is that they'll be better workers. The other type of motivation is known as extrinsic or externally focused motivation. External motivation comes from something from outside of us that drives us to want to do a good job. Pay, bonuses, vacations, overtime, all of these things are what are called external motivators. They come from outside the job, but they encourage us to do more of it. And we saw, I had a little video in there that demonstrated that as well. So those are a couple of things that managers need to be aware of, those couple of issues with regards to internal, external motivation and theory X and theory Y. The other major thing that we looked at in here was the theories of motivation. Now, scholars have been looking at for years about how can we motivate people? What are some of the things? We look at people's psychology and understanding how people tick. If we understood those things, we could more easily motivate people. So a whole class of research was developed around people's needs. What do people need? What do people want to get out of a job, right? So needs theories of motivation attempt to specify the kinds of needs people have, and if the employer can fulfill those needs, the theory is that they'll do a good job, okay? So needs theories are concerned with what motivates the workers, and they can be contrasted with another type of theory that we'll look at later on called process theories, which are concerned with how we motivate people. So the need theory really is sort of like the underpinnings. What is it that we as individuals need in order to be good workers or motivated to do things, we'll say, as opposed to good workers? The very first, and probably the one that everybody would anyone who has done business courses or anything like that will stand up and say, you know, this is one of the fundamental theories of motivation is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And Mr. Abraham Maslow came up with this theory quite a while ago, and it has been beat around in organizational behavior circles for years and years and years. And largely, it has been added to as opposed to refuted. So it stands the test of time. Okay. So effectively, Maslow's theory said that people are only motivated by things that they don't have in terms of their internal needs. And if they have things, that no longer motivates them. So what Maslow came up with was this so-called hierarchy. And a hierarchy says that, you know, there's bottom level needs that we absolutely individually must have. And these are known as physiological needs. Absolutely, we got to have air, water, food, shelter, these sorts of things. We absolutely need them. If we don't have them, it is impossible to motivate us to do anything other than just survive. So if you're a manager and you got workers who are hungry or thirsty or don't have enough sleep or just can't, you know, don't have the necessities of life, motivating those people is going to be practically impossible. Okay? So once we've got our physiological needs taken care of, then what would motivate us next would be safety needs. So we got our basic level needs taken care of, and if we got them taken care of, they're no longer going to motivate us. What's going to motivate us now? Safety. We need personal security, employment, resources, health, property. Those are the types of things that we as workers would want if we have our physiological needs taken care of. And that will motivate us. Now, if we got our safety needs taken care of, then we move to another level of need that we really need to look at, and that's love and belonging. Having friendship, intimacy, family, a sense of connection, those are so important to human beings. And you know, they're a higher level than safety and physiological, but they're very important. And if workers don't feel that they have the chance for friendship or family or a sense of connection at work, they're just not going to be motivated. So once we got our love and belonging needs taken care of, then we kind of move on to the next level. And the next level is what would motivate us if we have love and belonging. What would motivate us next would be what's called esteem needs. And esteem needs is respect from the people we love and belong, status from the people we love and belong, recognition from the people we love and belong, strength, freedom, these sorts of things. So once we have those three bottom levels taken care of, then we move up into I'll call it more of an ego-centric need, which is, you know, being the king of the castle. It's one thing to be part of the castle, but we all strive to be the king of the castle, okay? And the very last level, Maslow said, look, if people have their esteem, love, safety, and physiological needs, the only thing that's going to motivate them is, it's really hard to define. We'll call it self-actualization. And what that means, it is a feeling of absolutely, I am the person that I want to be, and now I'm ready to die. That sort of thing. It is the ideal state that we long for as human beings. And self-actualization is something that will certainly be a motivator for people who have everything. They want to be recognized as being top of the heap, and those people want also to feel that they're the top of the heap. So effectively, Maslow's hierarchy is one of the standards, you know, and it really, as I say, has stood the test of time. People have looked at Maslow and said, okay, Maslow, you got these 5 steps. Looks like a ladder. You know, you have to get one before you get the other and the other. Another theory has looked at Maslow's and said, well, you know, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. You know, people can still have love and belonging needs and still be worried that they don't have their physiological needs taken care of. So the ERG theory really said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to look at Maslow's theory again. So I'll go back to this slide here. We're going to look at Maslow's theory again, or maybe I'll go down here. I got it. I'm trying to think where it is. So I'm looking at Maslow's theory again. But effectively, what the ERG theory said, look, we'll take the bottom 2 of Maslow's, the safety and physiological, and we'll put them in, we'll call them existence needs. People need those basic needs met to exist. And the middle rows we're going to call relatedness needs, social, related to our environment that we work in. People are going to need those. And self-actualization, we'll put that up in the very top, and that's our growth needs. And effectively what the ERG theory says is that people can kind of go back and forth between the various levels. The same type of thing as Maslow, people still will be motivated with unmet needs. But the fact of the matter is that depending on the situation, certain needs will be met and certain won't. We as managers need to recognize what needs are met, what needs are not met, and ensure those needs are met, and that will motivate people. So the ERG theory has really built on top of Maslow. So these needs theories, you know, they're fundamental building blocks of any organizational behavior. What does it mean to managers? Why should managers be worried about these? What difference does it make? Well, managers have to realize that people are different. So every one of your needs are different than my needs. What motivates me is not necessarily going to motivate you. Okay? So we have to appreciate that people are different, and that includes things like diversity and differences in individuals. Managers must be adept at evaluating the needs of individual employees and making sure those needs are met in order to incentivize them. The other thing is We have to appreciate the value of intrinsic motivation. We talked about intrinsic being the internal stuff. So needs theories also serve to function for alerting managers to the existence of the fact that we have needs that are internal to us that may vary. So needs theories really indicate the real importance of managers appreciating the intrinsic and the diverse needs of individuals. Another set of theories that we looked at was what's called process theories. And process theories are really explaining the how stuff motivates us, right? So process theories try to explain why behaviors are initiated. These theories focus on the mechanism by which we choose a target and an effort that we exert to hit the target. So there's three that I've looked at here. There's lots of them, but three of them that are the primary ones, and that's expectancy, goal setting, and equity theory. Expectancy theory is the first one, and as the name implies, as individuals, we expect certain things of our job. We expect that if we do a good job, we expect to get rewarded. We expect that if we got a lot of education, we're going to get more income. We expect that if we worked at a company for a longer period of time, we're going to get more income because we're going to advance in our career. So we go in as humans and we naturally expect certain things of our job. And provided that our expectations are met, meaning that, I expected a raise and I got one, or I expected a promotion and I got one, or I expected after 10 years I would get some benefit. As long as people's expectations are met in the job, they're going to be motivated because they think that they deserve it and they got it, and they obviously did deserve it. The problem with expectancy theory expectancy theory says problems will come if people expect things and they don't get them, okay? So it relies on the belief that motivation is determined by the outcomes that people expect to occur as a result of their actions on the job. So the main concept of expectancy theory are that people will be motivated to engage in those work activities that they find attractive and they feel that they can accomplish. The attractiveness of various work activities depends on the extent to which they lead to favorable consequences. So if I feel that, in my work, doing a really good job with the students is the most valued thing, that's what I would focus on. So I would expect to be rewarded for that. But no, if the college goes and rewards me for showing up every day, that's not what I was expecting. And there's some differences there. So expectancy theory really has these three elements. There's an effort that you put in, the performance that you do, and the reward. And you want some connection in your mind, and you're the one that evaluates this. Do the connection between the effort you put in and the reward you got match? If it does, it will motivate you. If it doesn't in a negative way, it will demotivate you. So expectancy theory is a powerful theory that managers need to be aware of. Motivational practices really are going to have to be geared towards people's expectations. So we want to make sure that we set up clear expectations of what people should do in order to advance their careers, and we got to stand by those. If you do the things that we said, that's the things that move you ahead. Well, make sure that if people do those things, they actually do move ahead. And if we don't have any great expectations, that's certainly not going to be helpful towards moving the company along. So we got to clarify rewards. Employees should be convinced that first-level outcomes desired by the organization are clearly instrumental in obtaining positive second-level outcomes. So if the organization needs productivity as their number one thing, that's the thing that they're going to be rewarding. And again, the diversity issue, you need to anticipate that not everyone is the same in terms of their levels of feeling of what motivates. Another theory, process theory that has been developed is something called the goal setting theory. And goal setting theory is pretty straightforward. What we as managers need to do in the goal setting theory is to set very clear goals. So we set very clear goals of our employees and we clearly communicate them to the employees. If you study 16 hours a week at this course, you will get an A. So there's goal setting theory, okay? An A is the goal. Study 16 hours a week. So that's an example of goal setting theory in place. The theory is if you clearly define what the target is and how to achieve that target, people will work towards the target using those methodologies, and they'll expect it to be rewarded accordingly. So we need clear goals, goal specificity. We need the goals to be relatively challenging. If it's a no-brainer to do this, any idiot can do this. It's not a really strong motivator. It has to have some challenge to it. You have to get commitment, both from the employer and the employee towards the goal. And obviously some feedback. Yeah, you're doing well. No, you're not doing so well. So, goal setting theory helped get us on the moon. So goal setting theory, we look at some of the elements here, include employees in the goal setting, tie the goals to the work unit, set specific goals, ask supervisors to help set the goals, hold performance meetings, ongoing feedback coaching, ensure focus on relevant areas, and align reward system with results. All of that is important for goal setting to work. Okay. Now, what we can do in order to get people more engaged is more participation, better rewards, or rewards that are connected to the goals, and supportiveness to ensure that people are clear on what the goals are and how to achieve them. Okay, so goal orientation, we talked a little bit of that, goal setting and performance, a little bit there in terms of this goal setting theory. The last one in terms of the theories that we looked at in terms of this type of theory was equity theory. And equity theory is a really powerful one because what equity theory does is a process theory that states that motivation stems from a comparison of how much you put in to a job versus how much you get out. If you put a lot in, you expect a lot out. Okay, so and we're always comparing our internal effort, but also that of others. Do people work as hard as I do? Do they get the same rewards? Or do I get more rewards if I work harder? So according to the theory, individuals are motivated to maintain an equitable exchange relationship. Inequity is unpleasant. I worked really hard and I didn't get that pay increase. And that causes problems in an organization. So individuals that perceive inequity might use a number of tactics to regain equity, such as distort one's own inputs on outcomes. Oh, I thought I worked really hard on that anyway, but the fact that I was sat on my desk didn't mean I was actually working, did it? No. Oh, well, I'm perceptually distorting. These sorts of things can lead to problems, like people will distort, people will compare different groups and alter one's input versus the outcome, or potentially leave the organization. So as I say, equity is very much looking at ins and outs, and it tries to make a balance between what you put in versus what you get out. Okay, so those are, you should be familiar with what those theories are, okay? So, in terms of what the lessons are, well, create a motivating workplace. Money can be a motivator. It's not fully a motivator. It depends. If you have lots of money, money is not going to be a motivator. Now, the question is, how many people have lots of money? So money that employees receive in exchange for organizational membership is usually a package made up of pay and various other fringe benefits. Motivational theories suggest that money can be a motivator to the extent that it satisfies a variety of needs. So it has to be useful to you. Research has found that financial incentives and pay for performance plan increase performance and lower turnover. Yeah, they do. And it certainly, helps out. It does lead to some quality control issues, though. Linking pay to performance is very much what we called piece rate system years ago, where the more you work, the more you got paid. But if we're based on how many widgets you can produce, as I say, the quality is not necessarily one of the things that's being measured. I'm being told to produce 20 widgets. If I make 20 widgets, I make $20. If I make 30 widgets, I make $30. So I'm going to be making as many widgets as I can. In order to do that, I increase the productivity, but am I making sure that the quality is up to snuff? So, lower quality. I'm not going to help anyone. I'm not going to cooperate with anyone because I'm too busy making widgets, not helping you do it. Maybe certain jobs lend themselves to this. If I'm making widgets and you're, pay me on that, yeah. But if I'm not doing anything that's hard, it's hard to define. Like, the job I'm in, it's hard to define what the units of output are. So it's hard to be able to use that type of motivation. It can also lead to a restriction of productivity. If you don't want to be a rate buster. Okay, and white collar jobs is a problem. Blue collar jobs where you're making things with your hands, much easier to see the outcome. Okay, so those are the key things that you wanted to see there in the motivational unit. And in Unit 5, we looked at groups and teams. So we just finished this one, so this one should be fresh in your mind. And when we talked about groups, we had to first of all define what a group was. A group consists of two or more people interacting interdependently to achieve a common goal. Again, that goal focus is a theme that runs through all this. Interaction is the most basic aspect of the group. And groups exert tremendous influence on individuals. And they're social mechanisms. They're designed by people. There's basically two types of groups. Ones that the employer puts together. Those are called formal groups. They're part of a structure within the organization, clearly defined. And informal groups, which are just a bunch of friends getting together. The organization has nothing to do with it. They can, however, affect the organization. If we have cliques or groups of people that are buddying around together, that could have an impact on the organization. And these are known as, respectively, as formal and informal work groups. Some of the characteristics of formal work groups is they're deliberate, they have a defined structure, they're professional, they tend to be larger, and the nature of the activity depends on the group, and it tends to be an official leader. Whereas voluntary or informal groups really have people coming together just on their own accord. There's no structure to it. It's very personal based. It's relatively small, friend size. How the group acts depends on its members, and there is no official leader because everyone's just there of their own accord. In order to differentiate groups from teams tend to be a specific type of group, and it is a group that is put together usually by an organization. So the teams tend to be formal, first of all. And the idea is that when you put a team together, you take people from various elements of a company that bring certain skills. They come together and do a particular task. And once that task is done, the team disbands. Okay, so the team tends to be more temporary.